Hey everyone, I'm Neal Katyal, and this is The New Normal, a digital salon where we talk about life in the age of COVID-19. And today we're talking about youth engagement and particularly how coronavirus and quarantine impact it. And I'm thrilled to have two of the very best. Sophia Bush is my fave. She's a brilliant actor who's used her voice to better society. And thank you, Sophia, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And Jacqueline Alemany, the phenomenal Washington Post columnist who's writing about all this and more generally has the Power Up column at the Post. And if you want to know what's going on any given morning, just take 5 minutes and read this column and you know. And it's just a phenomenal service to all of us, Jackie. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Neal. Very nice of you.
Cool. So first of all, I just want to know, how are you both doing? This is obviously a hard time for everyone. And how are both of you coping with the new normal that we're living in? I mean, Sophia, for you, I imagine your work must have stopped. I can't imagine you filming during all of this. And for Jackie, I imagine reporting has to be harder too. So Sophia, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, thanks. It's certainly very strange. To your point, all productions were halted, shut down. I was 4 days away from beginning a project in Canada, and we all had to come home. So it's a bit odd. There's a lot of conversation in the industry about what does it look like to get back to work eventually? When is that going to be safe? What are the protocols going to be on set? There's a running joke that sets are sort of like these petri dishes for germs. And so that's less than ideal in the current situation. And I will say I'm really appreciative of how seriously my industry is taking it. They're really looking at the data and listening to the CDC and trying to kind of figure out what a version of a new normal will look like for us too.
Yeah. And personally, I read that you took the leap that I've been thinking about for a long time. You got a doggie from the rescue.
Yeah, I did. I adopted a new dog, and she's so sweet. I figured, since I was home, I might as well use some of my skills and help foster some dogs. And we got one adopted out pretty quickly, and then the other one, I decided I would never let her leave.
Oh, good for you, Jackie.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I really can't complain. I haven't made the quarantine dog adoption leap yet, though, which I'm shocked by. But I did purchase a pair of Crocs, so that's the biggest life update. But
I saw them. Wait a minute. These are the things with bananas on them, right?
Wow.
My impulse buy.
I thought you were cool, and I was like all worried about being on this thing with both of you. And then I was like, wait a minute, she's got orange Crocs with bananas. I'm okay.
Wearing them right now. But no, really, I mean, I'm in a really fortunate position, and I feel a great responsibility every day to just keep people updated on the I think what's slowly being more and more overlooked, that almost 90,000 people in the U.S. are dead as a result of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And so just trying to do my best to tell as many stories as possible and shed a light on people and essential workers and policies and things that aren't being, getting as much attention as they should be right now.
Let me ask you a little about that, Jackie, because 90,000 people have died. I mean, even when just 3 or 4 people die from some sort of calamity, it becomes a front page, big deal story. And here we've got something that is just so huge. And for some reason, it almost seems like there's a collective ignorance about the extent of the death rates and all the mishaps that have happened. I don't know if it's just people don't want to think about it or what, but I'm curious, what do you think is going on? And it must totally change your whole life and how you approach your job. So I'd love to hear a little about that.
Yeah, well, it is really interesting because there's obviously some inherent contradictions that we're seeing, like as Sophia was just saying. Your industry is taking this really seriously. There are a lot of people who are taking this very seriously. There are a ton of unemployed people who are taking this very seriously and would rather, have that economic impact and that burden than endanger themselves, their families, and other people right now. We're seeing that in the polling, and we're seeing that, in just really the unemployment numbers even. But then there is this faction of people who are, just seem to be fed up with what's going on, who worry that the economic repercussions are, greater than the death toll that we're seeing as a result of the disease, and want to get back to work, and that's coming from the highest levels in our government, the president himself, who's pushing to reopen the country despite, all of the warnings and the resistance to doing so.
Can I ask a question about that? Because as a person who, sure, I went to journalism school, but, Jacqueline, you're a journalist, and Neal, your law background is too long to mention right now. It'll be the entirety of our interview if I list all of your accomplishments. But what confuses me as the person who would technically be the lay person on this call is how, and I guess it's a two-pronged question, because I wonder how you as a journalist manage to cover the ridiculous information that is coming from the highest levels of, quote, leadership in the country. And Neal, I wonder how you view it through the lens of the law, because it feels to me like not only a dereliction of duty, but actually, in my opinion, criminal negligence when the leader of the free world is telling people that this, is a hoax created by his rival political party when, as you mentioned, 90,000 people have died. And there are people, we see more and more articles coming out about people who said, I thought that this was a hoax, or I thought this was being blown out of proportion, and then I got this disease and so did my wife, and my wife died or almost died, or, I had a pulmonary embolism because of COVID and realized this is real. Why do you guys think that, A, it's allowed for the folks who are supposed to be in charge to lie to us on TV, and B, why do you think, or do you think it's because of that in the news media, the misinformation, the confusing information coming out constantly? Do you think that that's why so many readers, so many citizens think that this thing isn't as big a deal as it is? Do you think that's why they don't quite trust the CDC, which feels crazy to me because, I don't know how my research at home is supposed to beat a $1.6 billion a year research budget at the largest public health agency in the world. I'm confused by this, guys. Help me understand.
Jackie, why don't you start and then I'll try.
No, I'm curious from a legal perspective, Neal, really what you think here, because obviously we're seeing playing out in Congress right now, the big discussion over liability.
Right. So I think that the law generally is not a good tool to use against leadership failures like what Trump is doing. And really, the system is designed so that, Jackie, people like you, the media, go and expose the stuff that is wrong, and then we're supposed to take it out at the ballot box. And that's really the system. We don't criminalize a lot of this stuff because it's just too hard. There's too many false accusations that could be thrown. You see it right now, for example, with Obamagate or something like that. It's easy to hurl an accusation. And even when you have a circumstance here where it's more than an accusation against President Trump, it's just the raw facts. But the legal system isn't designed for that. And so actually all these folks have what's called sovereign immunity. They have the inability to be sued, basically. And when I was the government's top lawyer, I routinely went into court and said, you can't sue, for example, John Ashcroft for violating people's rights. You can't sue him civilly and things like that. And criminal liability is even harder. So unfortunately, the law isn't the tool. The tool is politics, it's exposure and sunlight and the stuff, Jackie, that you're doing.
Yeah, I do think what we're seeing is really the culmination of years of what the Trump administration has been doing to science in general, which is dismissing it, chipping away at it, minimalizing it, and doing everything possible to put their political interests and political expediency ahead of scientific consensus and expertise. And we have been seeing that play out day in and day out on the most public stage, with Dr. Fauci standing next to President Trump, contradicting what the president himself is saying. But not to really toot our own horns, but I do think that the media has really been more important than ever during this, one, for disinformation reasons, as you pointed out, Sophia, which is that there is so much disinformation swirling around that's even more harmful right now with the election coming up. Mm-hmm. And then, really on top of that, the media has actually been able to make the White House change course a few times on certain policies. So when the president announced that this coronavirus task force, which is, all of the top public health officials making decisions and providing the data for the White House to actually be making these policy decisions, was going to be disbanded, there was a huge backlash because of the media coverage. And the next day the president said, "Oh, sorry, didn't realize that you guys all liked this task force so much. Like, we'll keep it in place."
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to part 1 of The New Normal. We'll be back in a couple of days with part 2, and Sophia and Jackie.